The fifth stop on the World Match Racing Tour brings the global fleet to the heart of America. Hi, I'm Tucker Thompson, along with two-time match racing world champion Simon Shaw, and we are live off Navy Pier here in Chicago, USA. This is the Match Cup Chicago. And Simon, looking out on the water here, we're off of Navy Pier inside the breakwater. Spectacular venue for match racing.
Absolutely inch perfect. This is the penultimate stage of the World Match Racing Tour, and almost coming home really to one of the real homes and hearts of match racing. The city of Chicago, home of the Chicago Match Racing Center, and it is not disappointed. Chicago has laid it on thick. The sun is shining. Yesterday, the wind built up again. Today, some amazing sailing conditions.
That's right, and this is day number 2 of a 5-day regatta, Simon. Yesterday we had some good action.
Yeah, and Tucker, it was great to get your recap of the story out there on the water yesterday.
Chicago, Illinois, day number 1 of the Chicago Match Cup, the 5th stop on the 2017 World Match Racing Tour. 18 global teams were divided into 3 groups of 6 for this day number 1 of the Fleet Racing Qualifiers. It was no surprise to see reigning champion Phil Robertson off to an early lead with 2 wins, and Francis Jan-Guichard with a win as well. But the biggest rivalry of the group was between the 2 local teams, Sally Barco and Andrew Campbell. Barkow proved time in the M32 pays off with a win in race 2, and she now sits tied for 3rd place with Jonas Warrer. Phil Robertson's in 2nd, and Jan-Guichard, with the most consistent finishes overall, is in the lead. In Group 2, Chris Steele impressed right out of the gates with 2 wins before race 3 saw penalties mix up the fleet, and Francis Quintin de la Pierre won after an opening pair of 6s. Nicholas Dockhammer's been chasing Ian Williams in the M32 Series fleet racing all summer, and the effort has finally paid off. His win in race 4 propelled him into 2nd overall, while in race 5, more penalties and a large right-hand shift shut down the passing lanes for Ian Williams, who took a 6th. So it's Steele making his mark on this fleet with the lead overall. Dockhammer sits in 2nd, and Ian Williams is 3rd. USA's Nevin Snow began Group 3 with 2 wins before going OCS at the start of race number 3, giving PJ Postma the lead with Taylor Canfield right on his heels. In the end, Canfield took the race, with Postma landing the wrong side of a penalty thanks to Marcus Edegren. Canfield continued his winning streak in races 4 and 5 and now leads the group with Sam Gilmore in 2nd. Meanwhile, Nevin Snow never recovered after races 1 and 2. He sits behind in 3rd. The fleet racing continues tomorrow, local time 9 a.m. right here off of Navy Pier in Chicago. Well, Simon, that, of course, was yesterday. We're going to have a long week of racing. The first 2 days are fleet racing, and then we shift to match racing.
Correct. So we got this first round, the 3 groups of 6, and then we'll see 1 boat, if you like, drop out of each pack. And those 3 teams go into this fire and brimstone elimination to see, who will be, if you like, that last spot into the Super 16 round. And then it is match racing all the way. 16 become 8, 8 become 4. 4 become 2, and then we have our champion.
And of course, if you're a fan of sailing, well, we are jam-packed full of it this week here in Chicago, because they're trying to cram basically a lot of racing into a short amount of time. So we start every day local time at 9 a.m. and go right on through to 5:30 p.m. A lot of sailing here in Chicago.
I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And, we've seen some amazing racing out there already today. We know we're getting ready to get underway with racing out there. But first onto the water. Well, that was actually Group 2, where Chris Steele, 36 below, amazing sailor, amazing team up from New Zealand, actually ended up with less than half the points of the rest of the field. They're finishing just ahead of Nicholas Dackhammer from Essex Racing. And, Tucker, Nicholas Dackhammer hasn't necessarily been like a formed team so far in 2017. So it's great to see him up there in 2nd place. Ian Williams, GAC Pindar also through, and I think Evan Walker and Matt Joward tied for that final spot, and actually Matt Joward and Red Line Racing, bit of a surprise to see him through into the sail-off. Then it was the turn of Group 3, where Taylor Canfield, US1, on, if you like, home soil, if you will, here in the United States, they're going through in 1st place, and unfortunately it is down at the bottom, and Marcus Egren, another American team who will have to go through to see how he does in the sail-off. But a really tight race, and two teams to watch, Sam Gilmore and David Gilmore, really sort of practicing out as a, you know, that family duo, if you like, has clearly been sort of brushing up on their M32 performance, and it was great to see them both through. But again, interestingly, Sam actually topping through, coming off that second place in Russia, carrying that through here into Chicago, just pipping his brother for that second position.
Yeah, Sam really has found his form, it looks like, in this tour so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, you know, it was great to see. I felt David came in, you know, with a little bit more perhaps Olympic pedigree on his boat, whereas I think Sam's perhaps been more focused on that match racing, and David was sailing so well at the start of the year, but Sam has somehow, if you like, use that energy to raise his own game, and now they're both super strong form teams on this World Match Racing Tour. And you know, I'm going to say I don't think it's that long before we're going to see a all Gilmore final of one of these World Match Race Tour regattas.
That'd be entertaining. I was watching their sailing here in Chicago yesterday, and the two of them had a chance to tack on each other. I can't remember if it was Sam or Dave, but you know, they might be brothers on shore, but on the water, the gloves are off.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic. And really, that just keys up the racing that we have coming up later this afternoon. That is just one final group. Then that crucial elimination, and it is Group 1. You know, Phil Robertson, China 1 Ningbo, leading the World Match Racing Tour. He's out there in this group. And we're just seeing him sail past there, just putting his final preparations. And Pete Greenhow there joining that team. So if you like, coming across from that Extreme Sailing Series and really adding a lot of strength, athleticism, and if you like, sailing experience and pedigree to that already incredible team.
I was going to say, as if you could add anything to this team, they've won 3 out of the 4 events here on the 2017 World Match Racing Tour. And in this group, that is more than impressive. That's dominant.
Yeah, you know, also in this group, Jan Guichard, Spindrift Racing, he's actually leading at the moment on 11 points. You know, no greater sailing pedigree than the Frenchman. And then Sally Barkow, Team Magenta 32, all-female team out there on the water, performing well. They're on 18 points. Then Harry Price, Down Under Racing, Jonas Warner from Warren Racing, and then Andrew Campbell from the Heart of America, another American team there looking to try and find his way through into that Super 16 round.
Well, 4 American teams, the most we have seen in any World Tour event this year, and it's the only U.S. stopover, so that would make sense. You've got Andrew Campbell and Sally Barkow, as you just mentioned. We've also got Taylor Canfield and Marcus Edegren. Now, we've just received word that we are going to start on time, the first race of the final group. And Simon, just give us a picture, if you will, of what the race course looks like out on the water.
Right, so what the moment is, we've got, if you like, a reaching start. So the boat's all jockeying position over on the right-hand side. And we're just looking down there, the top of screen. That's, if you like, the start side of the line. And they'll come reaching across down the screen, across towards Navy Pier, where they'll go around the jibe mark, then down on to the run through the 2 green marks. They're down at the bottom of the course, and you know, the camera just sort of panning around to try and find those marks out there on the racetrack.
Dizzying, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Now we're looking down. There's the green marks down at the bottom of the racetrack, across towards Navy Pier. And then as we slowly pan back around,
great shot of Navy Pier right there in the center of the screen. One of the best stadium sailing venues in the country, if not in the world. And here we are, inshore course here.
We are flying the racetrack right here. This is awesome. So coming up now to what are the top marks up at the top. They're the 2 reds.
Now, just to give you guys an idea, you'll probably see the boats in the background right there. That's the starting area. And we are in the sequence. We're coming up on roughly 2 minutes at some stage. We'll give you an update on the time. Right about now, there it is. 2-minute gun. Simon, the boat's heading away from the line before final approach.
I mean, it is all getting ready to go. And we talked a lot about the skippers, but the important thing to remember here are the colours. One to watch in the light blue, that is Phil Robertson,
current champion.
We're looking at the yellow. That is Andrew Campbell from the Heart of America.
Now, Campbell's currently sitting in 6th. He's got to get into that top 5 to move on.
So we'll see whether that young American team has got any more to give. Looking across other crucial boats to look out for. Jan Guichard, he's in the dark blue.
Guichard doing very well to lead this group so far.
And American Sally Barkow, they are in grey. So keeping an eagle eye out onto the race course, we can see it's actually the red of Jonas Warner, who's heading back towards the start line.
1 minute to go to the start.
So up at the top of the racetrack, it is the grey of Barkow. Down right at the bottom, that is the light blue of Phil Robertson, China 1 Ningbo.
40 seconds. The countdown. 2 Jennekers are out. Breeze is a lot lighter, Simon, than we've seen earlier this morning.
I mean, the wind really in, but it has, I think, really dropped off for this race. We're coming back inside the final 30 seconds. Phil Robertson down at the bottom of the line, looking to hold on to that inside line. Above him, it is the red of Jonas War, then the yellow of Andrew Campbell. And then up at the top, it is the grey of Sally Barkow and the dark blue of Jan Guichard.
Here we go, 5 seconds.
And down at the bottom, Phil Robertson starting to lead the turn down at the bottom of the line. And he's off, and they're firing on all cylinders across the line, all clear. And I think the best start there going to Robertson down at the bottom. He's going to hold on to that inside line. Up at the top in the light grey, that is Sally Barkow. I think a pretty good start for her. And then the black, well,
Price, Harry Price.
He's doing pretty good there up at the top.
You know, I've been impressed all year with Phil Robertson. He likes that leeward end start, and he seems to make it work for him better than most of the other teams. Here we go into mark number 1. Phil Robertson in the lead again.
Oh, I just love the footage of that drone coming around that mark. Looked like 4 M32s just packed on a die as they round that first mark, coming down towards the pier where all the spectators almost waiting to see the boats just land on the end of the dock, just off our commentary position as they turn down now towards the jibe mark.
There's Robertson just off the pier, light blue, leading into the jibe over Andrew Campbell. Good race for Campbell so far, and he'll need it to stay in the regatta with Sally Barkow trying to roll over the top of him, just right of screen. You can't see it there, but she's in gray. There.
Robertson there picking up, you can see the lower angle, just picking up the first of that gust. He's managed to turn that into a distance down the racecourse. Andrew Campbell picking up the breeze on the inside of Sally Barkow as our leading 3 lead this group down towards the bottom mark, down to the bottom green gates, and they've got to go between them and then back upwind. Robertson, cool, calm and collected, taking it easy out in front, lured daggerboard down, turning up and deciding to leave that Jenneker up for the upwind. So that in that lighter condition, they can carry that downwind sail up onto the wind and actually use it, if you like, a giant Jenneker to try and add a little bit more horsepower. And it's probably on the edge of that Jenneker being an advantage for this upwind. So we may well see some boats with them up, some boats with them down. You can sail slightly closer to the wind without the Jenneker up, but you know, perhaps a little shorter horsepower for the acceleration.
Now, Phil Robertson, the light blue, top of the screen, has gone to the right. He looks light out there. Meanwhile, Andrew Campbell, bow down with the Jenneker up inshore, heading towards Navy Pier. Looks as though he's got the best speed on the race course so far. And when they tack, we'll know if he's made a gain. I think he has on Phil Robertson.
And he's made a bit of a gain. You just got to remember that the boats do lose a lot of speed when they tack, and Robertson is a tack ahead now of the whole rest of the fleet. And we can see now that, if you like, lead starting to evaporate. Robertson still in a strong position, just bringing his bow up across the line of Campbell.
Has Campbell gained a little bit?
I think it perhaps a length or two, but you know, Robertson tacking just bang in front of Campbell, just trying to manage this race course, keep it under control.
So what does that tell you? Robertson likes the right-hand side on this first speed upwind.
He certainly didn't want to take any more left.
And he's giving dirty air to Campbell behind. Campbell will remain to leeward on port.
I mean, what he's also trying to do, yes, defend his position. Campbell clearly the closest boat to him there, so a good, sensible decision. But he's also trying to push Campbell back into the pack. If he can get Barkow closer to Campbell, it means that he's probably going to be eyes back instead of eyes forward, and Robertson just will be extending out in front. All the boats, bar 2, now on port.
You know, coming too far into Navy Pier will get you up under the wind shadow here, and I think that's another reason we see all of the fleet heading offshore, if you can call it that, inside the breakwater here, at least off of Navy Pier. To the right, Phil Robertson leading into attack.
And looking here nearer screen, this is Jan Guichard in the dark blue, pretty much buried on the start line, but he's managed to find his way up, just crossing Sally Barkow and now sailing strongly. I think we may well see him pushing back into that third position as they round the top mark, but we'll see. Robertson now also on starboard in the lead spot, just covering the fleet in the light blue, just to the right of screen. But it is Jan Guichard, the Frenchman, here on the left-hand side, slowly working his way back into this race.
Robertson may have opened the door a little bit by covering Andrew Campbell so tightly, and Campbell has dropped back in the fleet, just as you say, Simon. And now the question is, will Jan Guichard give Robertson trouble?
Well, there, the Jenica going away on board Jan Guichard. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure they'll redeploy here. It looks like it's on the edge. No, they've decided to.
There's Robertson crossing, still out in front from the right-hand side.
Now, this is critical. There, Jan Guichard there is on port. We're looking there down on the line of Phil Robertson, who's just coming up into his tack.
Look at that great shot. There's a perspective you don't see every day.
There, just redeploying that Jenica, snapping it back out now. There, Robertson looking to try and round the mark. Jan Guichard had to do quite a big duck, so no real advantages for him on this left-hand side.
And there's Campbell in yellow, trying to hold off Harry Price down under racing.
So, up at the top, well, Phil Robertson is around. And now we're just looking to see who is going to round second.
Tough to tell as all of the fleet heading towards that right-hand gate as we look upwind. Big crowd coming into the top gates.
And Jan Guichard's coming in on starboard, and he's managed to get a little bit of a piece there of Andrew Price. He's on starboard, and Price just, is he going to be behind? Oh, absolutely neck and neck between those boats, just across the front and round the mark into second place, Jan Guichard. Wow, 2 boats on port, almost spearing the little Frenchman there as he crossed, but round with the right-hand side and into second place. Andrew Price now.
Campbell, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, he's looking to round in second.
Holding off Sally Barkow. Just as you predicted, Simon, he's now eyes back, defending the jibe from Simon, while here, Guichard sails comfortably ahead.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what Jan Guichard was trying to construct. You can see Barkow jibing onto the line of Campbell, looking to throw her dirty air down onto the sails of the American newcomer. And I think that experience has paid off. She's looking to go around the front. They're just using that extra speed to sort of work down onto the line of Campbell.
This is an interesting battle, too, because both of them represent the Midwest. Both of them represent sailing here in the U.S. in this regatta. Both of them are fighting it out here. Campbell, higher angle, trying to regain his speed. There in the background, you can see left of screen is Jan Guichard now chasing our leader, Phil Robertson, way out in front. He'll head downwind to the leeward gates. Barkow into a jibe on the left of screen. Campbell will follow. So Sally and her team Magenta 32, all women's team, beautiful job. She was here last week in the North American Championships in the M32s, Simon, and she finished third, was leading all week long. Here she's doing really well.
So there, Robertson, just leading around the mark there. Screen Howell, they're just winding in that Jenica, just strapping it down, trying to get them able to sail as close to the wind as they can. They come across towards this left-hand side of the racetrack.
Interesting he chose the left this time. He fought so hard to protect the right on the first speed. Well,
keeping this race nicely under control. Second to round, Jan Guichard clearly picking his way back up. 5th became 3rd, and then up into 2nd.
Jan Guichard has made a bit of a gain to Phil Robertson. Robertson will tack and shift to the right.
Guichard sailing a little bit thin there. That wind brass just knocking him back. As Robertson just really continuing to dominate, tracking across now in the center of the racetrack.
Breeze is definitely a bit fluky across the course, Simon. It's getting lighter. Tacticians' nightmare. Really have to keep their heads out of the boat in these conditions.
And in a boat handling context, you know, at the top of this Jenica, you know, they're having to use a lot of sheet load. There's a lot of deploys. There's a lot of redeploys.
Yeah, in some ways, these conditions are tougher than just breeze on, where they sit on the rack.
And then here, the light grey. Well, that is Barkow. Just coming in off the pier.
Solid 3rd place for her. And
We're
she'll tack to stay with the majority of the fleet.
Yeah, there she goes. Through the tack, just right at screen. And see across to Campbell, who's been pushed right back in this race.
Well, it shows you 2 things. Number 1, Campbell's a great sailor. So he had a good start. He was out towards the front. But number 2, he probably has the least amount of time in these catamarans than anybody else, these M32s. And so lack of practice is showing as Campbell drops back through the fleet. Basically, that's Oracle Team USA, what's left of them, racing on Andrew Campbell's boat. Matt Cassidy on board, another Midwest sailor, or Chicago sailor. These guys have shifted from foiling catamarans to the World Match Racing Tour. It's good to have them in this event. There's Phil Robertson, far left of screen. Can he be stopped?
Well, I mean, not in this race. And, you know, maybe not overall. Certainly leading the World Match Racing Tour overall and, you know, really building on his performance. And if there was any doubt, you know, that he, you know, was not championship winning material, he has absolutely steamrolled this 2017 World Match Racing Tour. And my goodness, you know, this is the penultimate event. We are going to have a final to end all finals in China in, what, 3.5 weeks' time. I cannot wait.
Well, as you say, he's the current reigning world champion. And it's one thing to come back and then win perhaps one regatta in this star-studded fleet. He's won all 3 M32 match race regattas this year. All 3. Pretty impressive. Having said that, looking up the course, Jan Guichard will approach from the far right of screen, dark blue, and has he made a gain to Phil Robertson and China 1 Ningbo? I'm not sure at this point.
Well, we're with Phil Robertson now, coming back across from that left-hand side in the light blue. And there, Guichard coming in just underneath his line. Perhaps 3 lengths back, 4 lengths back.
Not much of a gain at this point. Robertson will set up for the top mark for the last time. Guichard will follow, and then it'll be the final sprint downwind towards the finish line.
I finished literally right off our commentary position here, Tucker. I'm tempted to take this commentary cam and just spin it around and just do a little bit of camera work myself.
Not a bad idea. Well, the left-hand end of the finish is the corner of Navy Pier. Literally, the mark is strapped to the pier. Here's Phil Robertson on his way to the finish.
And listen, if you are in the city of Chicago, if you're in, you know, striking distance range of Navy Pier, please come down and see this racing firsthand. You know, the experience, we're now surrounded by people all here leaning over the edge of the pier, looking out onto the racetrack. And, you know, particularly when these boats come through the finish, it's reach out and you can touch them. Absolutely first-class sailing. And, you know, to have some of the world's top sailors from all across the globe, all here in Chicago, racing these incredible M32 boats. It's a real experience.
Well, another thing to add to that experience, you don't have to be an expert sailor to follow how cool the racing is in these catamarans, going double the speed of the wind. They're flying here inshore off of Navy Pier. Of course, the race course is so close. It is an exciting spectacle. And if you're not here in Navy Pier and you're listening, what could you possibly be doing that's more entertaining than listening to you and I live, Simon, here off of Navy Pier in Chicago?
And listen, we'll be bringing you the racing as it comes on Facebook. We're trying to almost stream live really all day for bringing you the best of the racing. And, of course, that cool penultimate final through on the Sunday. But coming down in this race, this is Group 1 of the seeding round. and it is World Champion 2016 World Match Racing Tour M32 King, boss of the fleet, Phil Robertson, coming down and on the end of the pier, just making his final jibe down along the waterfront here to take what is their first race of the day.
3 more to go. Beautiful job for Phil Robertson and crew, but Jan Guichard still leads the group. He's set up for a very close second place coming across the line in about 10 seconds.
They're just panning up. There's Jan Guichard bringing his bow down and through.
With that, I think Guichard may still lead the group, Simon.
I think he does, yeah. So that takes Jan Guichard on to 16. Oh, sorry, Phil Robertson is on 15 points. Jan Guichard will move to 13. So he's still out in front.
Yellow boat, Andrew Campbell, Heart of America, and he is behind Sally Barco. We watched that unfold. Back of the right-hand side of the screen there, you can just see Barco in the gray boat about to cross the line next. She'll take 3rd place.
So look at that. Look how light that wind is and how fast that boat's going.
Look how close Barco is to the finish. That mark is not in the water, Simon.
It's on the land.
On the pier.
Well, right Barco just turning down, and you can see they're not exactly speeding through the finish, but, you know, a comfortable 3rd place for Barco, and that's a great performance for her. You know, sometimes we've seen Barco struggle to make it through this first stage, you know, getting a little nervy towards the end. And it's nice to see them really performing and, you know, taking 3rd.
Well, you know, in her downtime, if she has any, while not training for this, she is promoting more women getting into top-level sailing like this. It's impressive that she's able to manage both. Here is the next boat across the line, Simon.
Well, Jonas Walk down and through in to 4th place, very closely followed by Black. The
black boat is Harry Price down under racing, but it's interesting that Barco and Warrer are tied. Barco has now just moved ahead of Warrer overall. And then finally, almost in a fight for the lead in the first run, the 6th place team is Andrew Campbell.
Wow, that's shocking. I mean, that's terrible. It just didn't work out for him.
The
bottom of that run just did not work out for him. Made a bit of a split to the wrong side. Just somehow, I don't think they got their Jenica sheeted on correctly. Just a little bit too deep out the bottom of the mark. And, you know, they're going to be gutted with that. You know, when you're in a sort of 2nd come 3rd, the first run to come through DFL, then really that is not what you need. He's going to have to try and find some performance to find his way back. All of these boats, remember, just trying to avoid that 6th place. We'll see later today at the conclusion of this qualifying group, we'll see the bottom team from each group going and facing each other in that sail-off, and that sailing will happen today.
Now, Andrew Campbell and his team predicted that they wouldn't be strong in the fleet racing, but they have an advantage, according to them, in the match racing. So even if they finish last in the group and they then move to the match racing knockout, we may see them win the knockout and start to move forward in the match racing as the week moves on.
I admire their sentiment. I think when you say an advantage, it really depends relative to who. I think that is the question. But listen, that was the racing, and we are going to take a quick recap of that first race of Group 1.
Here we go, approaching the start. Race number 1, Group 1, the final fleet racing of the day here.
15 seconds to go there, and just so you can see in that bottom position, the man to watch, Phil Robertson, boom, absolutely bang on time. He was at full speed from perhaps 6 or 7 seconds earlier than everybody else, and just using that exquisite time and distance really just to poke off, and actually only just holding on to the lead. He needed every inch of that performance to hold on to the inside spot, and if you're on the inside as it turns back, you can see what happens to a boat if you drop back there. The red of War dropping back.
So it's a very high-risk start to win the pin end, but it pays off big dividends.
It pays off if you can pull it off, and Robertson really just dominating the whole way around to close out the match. Perhaps a bit of a cross with Jan Guichard, who managed to find his way back. But Robertson clear at this point, and Jan Guichard crossing the two port boats. He just managed to stay out of his way, and this is really where it started to unravel for Andrew Campbell, really.
So Campbell moved back through the fleet, as we know, finishing 6th. Jan Guichard move up to take 2nd. But it was Phil Robertson who won, and now we've got him live on the water. Simon, let's hear from the winner himself.
So yeah, going out onto the water with Phil Robertson, China 1 Ningbo. You know, light conditions, but it looked like you guys really took that in your stride.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty nice when you can round Mark 1 and just pull the boat away and get nice and deep and lay into the bottom mark where everyone else is fighting it out. So that makes life a little easier for you. So key is in the starts, I think, right now, and that'll be the plan going forward.
And just, you know, just talking about that start, we just watched a bit of a replay of your positioning in on the pin, just right down at the bottom. How tricky is that start when you've got all those boats above you, just managing being absolutely on time but keeping that air clear?
Yeah, you do. It's not super favoured for the pin today, so you got to be on your money. But yeah, I'd expect to see a few more people try and fight for it. And the problem is, in this fleet, you got 5 other match racers on the start line, so everyone just tries to kill the boat next to them, which isn't ideal in a fleet race.
Well, listen, yeah, well, great job just finding your way around that first market all the way to the finish line, and good luck in the rest of the matches.
Cheers, boys.
There we go. Phil Robertson, not only impressive in that race, but impressive the entire year. There's a name we're going to hear more from here in Chicago as this regatta continues. The 5th stop on the 2017 World Match Racing Tour. In a few moments, we will have the pre-start countdown for race number 2 of this group. Just a few minutes, right, Simon?
Yeah, we're just getting ready for racing. I think a little bit of a delay. We could see that repair boat just coming alongside. I think that was Jonas War out there on the racetrack, just getting ready for racing. So perhaps a little bit of a repair. We can see the race officer just getting ready, getting all the flags ready. Really important they don't make a mistake. Dahlstrom really following this series really around the world and hugely respected by the competitors. But the wind has changed. A lighter breeze is in, certainly in comparison to this morning's racing.
This happened yesterday as well. We had a lull like this, Simon, and then it shifted left, northwest, and picked up quite a bit. It's expected to do that this afternoon as well, but later in the afternoon. So we could see some light air matches. These top level teams have to be on their game no matter what the conditions are here at the highest level of match racing in these M32 catamarans. And one thing that we all know is exciting about the catamaran match racing, Simon, is that in previous monohull match racing in this type of conditions, we'd have very slow races. These boats are still flying a hull, the Gennaker up, and still going fast.
Oh, I mean, absolutely incredible. And, you know, we got all that match racing to come. We just told Reynolds come in 4 minutes, opening up on the clock. But, you know, we're finishing qualifying today. And then on Friday, that will be the Super 16 sail-off, where 16 are whittled down to the final 8. But the quarterfinals will be raced on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the semi-finals and the finals. So plenty of racing from teams all around the world here at Navy Pier in Chicago.
One of the best venues for this type of match racing, really in the world, not just in the United States.
Yeah, it's easy to say stuff like that. The breakwater, the combination of the pier providing access for the viewers right down in and onto the race course. You know, absolutely first class.
And of course, the World Match Racing Tour has always been a feeder to the top level of sailing, like the America's Cup. And we had an America's Cup event here off of Navy Pier in Chicago last year. Hundreds of thousands of people, and that has set the stage for what we're now seeing. Highest level of match racing in the sport here in the M32 catamarans.
Thank you. Whoever
That, I
gave,
believe,
TV
was the
man the count,
3-minute
if we could get 1
signal for race number 2.
Yeah, I actually popped into one of the dialing establishments just down here on the side of Navy Pier and picked myself up a little, just because I knew we were going to be bringing you the action all afternoon. So I've had to kind of fit in a bit of an early lunch at about 11:30, and I walked in and I had the sailing logos on my jacket, and you saw their face full. They were like, "Oh, last time this happened, you know, there were tens of thousands of people here. Do we have enough burgers?" And I was like, you know what? Maybe you should stock up, because the World Match Racing Tour is here, and there are going to be a lot of people coming down to watch the racing. So
not just a hungry Simon Shaw.
2, 1, mark.
2 minutes to go, Simon. Breeze is definitely light, and it may look like these sailors are just sitting waiting for the start, but they're not. There's a lot of preparation that goes into the final slingshot into the line, as we saw with Phil Robertson. That timing is absolutely crucial.
well, critical stuff. Final preparations. Looking at Barkow and her team. 1 minute 35. Windward Daggerboard just coming up, getting ready for that approach on port.
Sort of like the horses waiting in the pen before they open the gates. Gates will open in 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now, can't see it here, but in a wide shot, Phil Robertson is setting up for the pin again, but there's one boat that looks to be giving him some trouble.
Well,
that's Jonas Warrer.
Well, War down the bottom. Bow pointing up. Robertson looking to turn up on to his bow. We're sort of panning across here with...
There we go. There's a shot at the pin.
The
Far
black
right of
Price.
screen is the light blue boat. That's Phil Robertson, and you could just see the red bow. That's Jonas Warrer looking to steal that pin end from Phil Robertson.
Let's see. Dark blue of Spindrift Racing. Didn't get the best of starts last time, but managed to work up into second place. Let's see what he can do in this final race. Both boats starting to bring their bow towards the line now. War in the lowest position, with Robertson above him, with Guichard just above them, and then up to Price, Barkow and Campbell. Campbell really fighting to stay in the competition in the yellow. The only boat
14,
there at the top of the course with the Janica route.
11,
Looks like War
10,
is going to
9,
hold on to that
8,
lower spot. Robertson
7,
starting to build, but Jan
6,
Guichard, I think, perhaps the
5,
fastest on the race course.
4,
And Andrew
3,
Campbell
2,
there, right up on the top of the
1.
course, is going to look like he's going to get a good start.
Wow.
Absolutely bang on for the American up at the top of the race course. So Campbell looking strong. No, he's over, going back.
Oh, he is. Oh, no, that looked like such a perfectly timed start. The difference must have been inches.
Wow, he certainly pulled the trigger before everyone else, and he's paid the price. Now down at the bottom, Jan Guichard looking to roll across the top of Phil Robertson. Can he get the knife into the New Zealander before they get to the mark? The Frenchman leading the Chinese towards the reach mark. And just round the front, Jan Guichard just sneaking around just in the nick of time to lead around Mark 1 with Phil Robertson just on his tail from China 1 Ningbo. And then it is the red of Jonas War, who I think has just been rolled by the black
Price.
Price.
You know, Warrer got that pin end start, but he didn't have the timing and the speed that Phil Robertson did in the first race, and it shows. Now Robertson finds himself in second place, and he'll try to beat the French team into the jibe. Young Guichard will respond to leeward, still holding on to the lead.
I'm surprised we saw Guichard jibe there. I think Robertson jibing early, and Jan Guichard could have continued on perhaps just a little bit further. There is an exclusion zone, but he is breeze out in front, picking up speed. Jan Guichard the first to pick up the breeze, actually. Perhaps he'd seen that. The rest of the fleet now turning through their turns on this inside.
The yellow boat in the background, that is Andrew Campbell. Now it looks like he's in third, but he's got one more jibe to do to connect with the fleet. He's got a great puff of breeze there in yellow. Looking to bring the bow down, speed on, hull flying. Remember, he was last off the line after being over.
There, Jonas War at the back. Ugh. Down at the bottom, this is our lead boat, Jan Guichard, looking to try and sail a low angle. Look at that, the weight, two of the crew down on that leeward hull, trying to pack the weight as far forward as they can, trying to get one of those hulls out of the water just managing to make it down. Absolutely perfect. They jibed to get onto that ley line all the way back just opposite our commentary position, and he's managed to make it down